Today I'm going to be doing a load test on 8 popular 12-volt lithium iron phosphate batteries. I'm going to be testing to see if they can output 100 amps and if the overcurrent protection actually works on them. It's a range of batteries from inexpensive Group 24 to feature-rich to large 200 amp hour batteries. The batteries are GrenerPower 100 amp hour, OKMO 100 amp hour, Dr. Prepare 100 amp hour, LiTime Self Heating 100 amp hour, OKMO 200 amp hour, Siekon 100 amp hour, Solorage 100 amp hour, VATRER 100 amp hour with Bluetooth self heating. And in addition to that, I'm also going to be testing 2 popular bargain brand power stations, running the same tests as I do on the batteries. So stay tuned, let's see what happens. The test is going to be simple and as close to the same as I can possibly get. I have a 2000 watt inverter, so I'm going to apply a space heater on medium, then the space heater on high, and then the heat gun on low. That will give me a maximum of 2000 watts, which is the limit of my inverter. So we should be able to test 100 amps on every one of these batteries and then push it up to 2000 watts to see if any kind of overcurrent protection kicks on. First up is GrenerPower. On their website, they have a pretty outrageous statement that says they can do, looks like 20,000 watt output. So let's see what it can do. Space heater's going on. That's medium. Got 860 watts. That's high. We got 1420 watts. So it's easily beating 100 amps. Heat gun on low. All right, ran it for like a minute. Absolutely no problem. So GrenerPower can output 100 amps and there's no way I'm going to be able to run 20,000 watts through this thing. So we can't test the overcurrent protection, but it passed the load test. Next up is OKMO. This says it can do 100 amps. According to their website, their BMS also can do up to 400 amp surge based on the temperature and the current. I've also moved the camera, so hopefully now you can see the screen a little bit better. Turn everything on. Now I'm going to apply the space heaters going on medium. No problem. Space heater's going on high. No problem. Heat gun's on. We've got 1840 watts. That's as high as I can, that's as close as I can get it to 2000. No problem. So again, I ran that for about 30 seconds. OKMO had absolutely no problem, so it can do 100 amps, and the BMS was not triggered because again, I only have a 200 watt inverter, and I'm not going to be able to do 400 amps. Next up is Dr. Prepare. This one has a unique feature because it has this hub that lets you bring solar in and do DC out, but you have to take it off when you're running it like this, so it will be removed, but it's kind of a cool battery. Let's see what it can do. Okay, space heater on medium. See, it's a little under 900 watts, no problem. Space heater on high. 1300. All right. Went to 1300, and then we got the low voltage disconnect. Now the problem with the Dr. Prepare is to reset it, you actually have to take the inverter off. You're supposed to be able to put some voltage on it and it restarts it, but I've never been able to get that to work, and I've tested this battery a dozen times. The only way I've been able to get it to reset is to take the inverter off. So it does capacity, its overcurrent protection works great, but I don't like that it's annoying that you have to take the inverter off to reset it. Next up is a very popular battery. This is LiTime. It is a self-heating battery. do 100 amps like everything else. Let's start the test. Space heater's on medium. No problem. Space heater's on high. It's doing over 1280, so it's doing 100 amps. Now let's see. Oh, there we go. Turn off the load. So it hit about a little over 1400 watts and shut down. Let's see if it resets itself. Okay, it's been about 20 seconds. And it resets itself. So LiTime was able to output 1280, got to about 1400 or so, overcurrent protection kicked on. Then 30 seconds or so, maybe 45 seconds, the battery reset itself. So next up is the OKMO 200 amp hour battery. This one is a massive battery, as you would expect, because it's 200 amp hours, so I can't quite show the whole battery. Let's start the test. Just like their smaller 100 amp hour one, this one says that it can do up to 400 amps. Let's start the test. So the space heater's on high, no problem. We'll turn on the heat gun. You can see we're at basically 2000, absolutely no problem. Just like its smaller 100 amp hour brother, the OKMO 200 amp hour had no problem doing 2000 watts for 30 seconds, and I'm sure it would have done it until the battery went out. Next up is the Siekon, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. This is a 100 amp BMS, but it can do 300 amps for 5 seconds. Let's see what it does. Space heater's on high. No problem. Heat gun. Let's see if it can do 5 seconds. Well, that's more than 5 seconds. So this battery easily did 2000 watts for 30 seconds. It says it can do 280 for 5 seconds, so I wasn't able to get over that amount to trigger the overcurrent protection. But the BMS inside can at least handle basically a 2C output for 30 seconds. So next up is Solorage. Again, 100 amps. I wasn't able to find any other information about it, so let's start the test. Space heater on medium. Space heater on high. Doing over 100 amps. No problem. Heat gun. So it did 100 amps, no problem, and then it did 2000 watts for 30 seconds. Overcurrent protection never kicked in. Next up is the most feature-rich battery of our test. It is a VATRER battery. It has low temperature protection, actually has a self-heating pad in it, and it offers Bluetooth, so we'll be able to watch it on my phone as well. Let's start the test. Space heater is on medium. Space heater's going on high. It's able to do that. All right. Turn off the load. You can see the overcurrent protection kicked on. Let's see how fast it comes back on, if it does. I've turned the load off, and I've turned the space heater off, so the load's off. Let's see. Turn the inverter off. Try turning it back on. Yep, there we go. So whatever that was, 20 seconds. So the overcurrent protection is really good. Kicked on, it came back pretty easily, and it was able to do the 100 amps, but it's protected. It didn't let it go over the 100 amps for very long, but VATRER performed very well. So now on to my power station tests. Now I'm not comparing these two to each other. Obviously they're different. The AllPowers on the left can do 1800 watts. The OUPES on the right can only do 1200. So I'm not going to be comparing the output to each other. I just want to see if they can do the rated load and if their overcurrent protection works. So we're going to start with AllPower. AC is on. I'm going to turn on the space heater. Well, it appears to be doing fine. Now here comes the old heat gun. Kicked off when it was over 1800 watts. You can see this air right here. It says that's the overcurrent protection air. I've turned the load off. I'm going to reset it all. Turn the unit off. Turn the unit back on. And then turn the AC back on. And then we'll see if it's reset. Okay, it is not coming back on. All the lights look on. There's a circuit breaker on the back. Let me turn it all off and then try that circuit breaker. And the load is off. All of the load is currently off. Let's try turning it back on. See, it's showing AC. Let's try load. No load. Oh, there we go. So the AllPowers is back. It just was a little clunky coming back. It took whatever that was, almost a minute to come back. But it was able to do 1800 watts. Overcurrent protection kicked on. It did come back, although coming back online was a little awkward. Now the OUPES. Again, it only does 1200 watts, so I'm going to be a little gentler on this one and start the space heater on low just to see if it can get to 1000 or 1200, stay there for a little bit, and then see what happens when we go over the 1200. So let's give it a shot. Turn the unit on. There we go. AC button. Now let's apply a load. It's on low, doing roughly 600 watts. Appears to be fine. There's medium, doing about 900 watts. Appears to be fine. Now let's see if it can do on high, which I think is going to trigger the overcurrent protection. Yeah, we're over 1300 watts. So it's able to handle 1300 watts. Let's see how long. I don't want to cut this. I want to show this in real time if it's going to cut out. Still going. So it's able to beat capacity. Still going. It's able to, so it's able to beat the rated load. All right. I'm going to bring it back down. Opus did pretty good. Now let's trigger that overcurrent protection. I'm going to turn it back on to high, and I'm going to turn on the heat gun. And we see if it does have overcurrent protection over 1300 watts. There goes that heat gun. All right, it's shut down. You can see the air, so I'm going to turn the loads off. That air right there. So all the loads are off. AC is off. Turn AC back on, see if it comes back. Now I want to see if the heat gun comes back on. All right. So the Opus was able to do 1200 watts, do about 1300 watts. Then it kicked on that overprotection after about 30 seconds or so, maybe a little bit more. And then it was pretty easy to reset it after the overcurrent protection came on. So pound for pound, it looks like the Opus actually outperformed the AllPowers, even though the Opus can do less load. The functionality was much smoother on the Opus. Well, that was a pretty cool test. What do you guys think? Anybody stand out? How did your favorite do? Who do you think won? Leave a comment below. Love to hear your feedback. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to everyone soon.